Order for November 15th at 5:32 p.m. If you'll join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, if we can get an adoption of the agenda, please.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda for the November 15, 2022 as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so first item on the agenda is our recognitions and proclamations. Anybody on the board have anything to kick off on there? Sandy.
I have two things. First of all, I'd like to say a big thank you to Rachel Willis for what she's been doing with the JAG program. I went out to the indoctrination, and it was just really great to see how many kids have joined the program. And I just think she's really taken the program to the next step, and I think that's great.
Running with it, I do too.
And my other thing is to thank all the people that work so hard on the override.
Good point. Thank you. Randy, anything?
I have nothing to add.
Ron?
Sandy took my, so,
Perfect.
there you
Dr.
go.
Ramandini?
Well, I actually have the same two things Sandy said, but I'm going to expand a little bit because although the results are not yet final, I do want to thank the community for their support of the maintenance and operations override. It does look like we will win that mathematically. I do not believe it can be lost, but it is still unofficial. And I want to extend a specific and sincere gratitude for the members of the Support Our School Political Action Committee who organized to get the word out about the M&O override. Specifically, Tiffany Shuck, Raymond Whitelock Crawford, Karen Steen, Terry Dolan, Connie Dirks, Terry Davidson, Deb Van Gorder, Paul Yulon, and Valerie Shumway. So thanks to that small but mighty group of people who did a lot to get information out to the entire community. And I'm very grateful to their work and on behalf of our students in expanding the funding that we have available to support our schools. I also went to the JAG induction program, and that was beautiful. So congratulations to Rachel and the high school and to the kids. The kids were the speakers. They did an amazing job. Sandy and I sat together, and they did an outstanding job. So it was a beautiful ceremony. So
Good.
That's it.
Thank you. All right, next item business is a presentation from Mr. Rick Brammer for Applied Economics.
Yes.
Dr. Ramandini?
Yeah, I'll do a quick introduction of Rick Brammer. We engaged with Rick, who is a demographer that works with school districts and other entities around the state to help us plan for future growth, make good decisions about our facilities and the future of the district. So we've been working, I told Mr. Brammer, we've been working, I think, together for over a year, but we've never met in person until tonight because we started when we weren't allowed to meet in person. So the board has the entire report, and the presentation is in the board document. So, Mr. Brammer.
Thank you very much. President Malio, Dr. Ramandini, excuse me, members of the board, guests. It's my pleasure tonight to finally get in front of you in person to see everybody and to talk to you a little bit about the research we've been doing for you all, and really has strung out over almost a year now, because I think we started this conversation about a year ago, and then it got delayed because of all the goings on. And I said, well, we can start a study, but we're going to wait until we get next year's enrollment data in there before we call it done, because I don't like to release something and immediately have it go out of date for people. So we kind of elongated our own process. The scope of the study essentially involved analysis of these four steps, I should say. Analysis of enrollment trends, and that's total, the grade level distribution, geographic distribution, and then also alternative providers and students from outside the district. So all forms of enrollment were considered. The demographic characteristics of the population itself, age characteristics, household types and structures, owner versus renter, those types of factors that really go into driving the school-age population. Analysis of all the current development plans, such as they are. Don Graves with our office was supposed to be here tonight. And interestingly, he's still testing positive and is still at home. So he sent me with a page of notes because I'm not as good at residential development stuff as he is. And I've got a pretty good lay of the land and I have read the report, but that's, he is our expert and I apologize for him not being here. But he's looking at current development activity and then planned development activity for the future. And, the different markets and submarkets and emergence of rental, single family rental housing and all those factors that go into our current marketplace. And then I use that information to do two sets of enrollment projections, really. One is a household structure, top down allocation of growth to your community from the metropolitan area. How do you fit in? What's your market niche? Who's going to come here, et cetera, with all these houses? And then a bottom up looking at the actual plans and the actual demographics at the neighborhood level of what does it look like going forward? Who's moving in? Who's moving out? What is the age structure? How old are we getting? How old could we get? All those kinds of questions. And then we so that's a bottom up model. And we compare the results and try to use those to refine what we're saying. And I will say that projections is it's a dicey business, and sometimes it's dicier than others. And in the transition periods like this, it can scare the heck out of you. So we do say that our 1 year, 2 year, 3 year forecasts are pretty good, and you get out to 5 and 10 years. It's really trying to be an idea of where we think you're going, and we're going to have more information before we actually get there. If we didn't just look at at the district in total, we actually broke the district itself up into 14 modeling areas, and which were sort of three clusters. Wickenburg proper, the west, I call it, which is largely an uninhabited area, and then the emergent south area. And then we also looked over time at enrollment coming from the other areas that you serve, primarily for high school from the surrounding districts. So we tried to be as thorough and comprehensive that way as we possibly could be. Starting back over with basically district characteristics where you've been, the blue bars in this chart are total 40th day head count enrollment. So it doesn't have anything to do with ADM or weightings or any of that stuff. It's probably the purest of the numbers. And the red squiggly line is the year-over-year percent change. And I guess what's most striking to me really is not the ups and downs, but how flat it is. I mean, being within 100 or so people over a period of 20 years is pretty phenomenal that any population would just sit into that kind of a groove for that period of time. You see a couple little ticks up. In 2008, 2009, probably about the last time I was here, we were looking at the prospect of, again, Sun Valley and emerging projects, and everything was roses and sunshine. And of course, we know that didn't happen. And the people who did move in, who gave us that peak in 2008, 2009, about a third to half of them lost their house. So enrollment went down. And interestingly, the people who moved back in were largely retirees because that's who could afford to buy houses at that particular moment in time. So it caused a shift in the whole demographics of what had been built up to that moment. It's not bad or good. It just took away that part of the population. And really it was level up until, say 15, 16 completely. And then what we've seen is a little bit of a downtick, but that's because you're getting a little smaller number of students from outside the district. The internal district enrollment number has been almost exactly flat at 1,000. The only real difference has been out of district. And the only other thing I would say, and I think I noted it on the slide, is that a lot of districts didn't get the bounce back after COVID. We know a lot of districts that just lost, especially like Dysart, who just lost and they just never came back. So, it's a little different. It's a good thing that your students were motivated to come back to your schools, because that did not happen everywhere. The next one is we look at where, we get student level data, just basics, address, what school they attend, what grade they're in. And we can plot that though on a map and look at who we're serving out of each of these sub areas in the district. And so I color coded them here by the school they attend. So you can see that most of the students coming from outside the district are high schoolers. So you see those purple dots pretty much everywhere. A few lower grades from everywhere too, but primarily it's the high schoolers that you're drawing from outside. And then because of the scale of this map, it's really actually hard to even see the K-8s. But the largest cluster, as we'll see, is still around the town of Wickenburg proper, with an emerging population down to the south. The grade structure of the enrollment is kind of the second screen, again, looking at district totals on 40th day. Here it's the average enrollment in these groups, average enrollment per grade in each group. Okay, so as you can see, the K-8 group has always been smaller because you've always brought in high schoolers from outside of the district, basically. And you can see how wide that gap got. It probably would have been a little gap anyway because you're kind of a move-up housing market, which tends to attract a little bit older buyer, a little bit older parent. But the size of the gap is because you do service all of those other communities. And you can see from this how that has closed, say over the last 8 or 10 years. And like I said, that's really what's been the cause of most of the decline. The only other thing I would want to say about this particular chart is the K2 group. Look at the last couple of years. You're now at a 6-year high in average enrollment per grade in that group. And if they could ever get their act together to actually sell some more houses in the southern part of the district, you would see that continue. And not only are we seeing it finally kind of take hold, I'm seeing in the demographics is a lot of the kids that are going into those houses haven't gotten to school yet. They're actually preschoolers coming at you. So it's really interesting, and it really could turn around, but then of course we're walking into what's probably going to be a recession. So it's a kind of a whirlwind time to do this. We take all those dots and we add them up, and I know it's harder than heck to read, but these are the actual number of K-12 Wickenburg students who come from each of those 20 planning areas, the 14 in the district and the ones in surrounding areas. So for instance, from the Congress Elementary School District area, you get 52. And the largest of those over the years has been Natterburg, where you're still pulling 81. However, we'll see in a minute that number's down a lot since they opened their high school. But you're getting it from all directions except from the south, and that makes sense. Saddle Mountain's become more of a real place than it has been in the past, and you don't pull quite as many from that direction as you used to. But from all the other directions, it's strong. It's a strong draw, and you're a regional center, for high school education, and that's really an important role. In addition to just looking at what the counts are this year, we have several years of data that we were provided. So I didn't want to make it too long a period, but this is just looking at what's happened the last 3 years. So we picked 1920 because that was pre-COVID. So that was a quote unquote normal year. And then we used this year. And then, again, by geocoding the students, we can see what the change in enrollment has been in that 3-year period by each of these planning areas. And you'll see that, a lot of the area around the town proper has been in decline, except for a small gain, up north, probably Wickenburg Ranch area. It's mostly retirees, but not exclusively. There are a few kiddos going in there. But by far the largest gain, of course, has been down in the south, in the festival area. And that's essentially where we'd expect it to continue to be going forward. Demographics. It's a demographic study. There's a lot of numbers here. I won't give a test, I promise. So I just wanted to share with you some of the detail because I think it makes it a little more real about what we're talking about here. So you can see that, if you go back to 2000 at 8,200 people, we basically doubled the population of the district in the last 20 years, almost exactly. And a gain of over 5,000 in about 5,200 in resident population in the last decade between 2010 and 2020. Both decades, the growth rates in the 3% range overall, which is what I consider to be very healthy community growth. It's manageable. It's just a healthy place to be. But when you start looking at then how that breaks down in terms of the ages, we'll see that the population under 18, the share of the population that's under 18 has fallen from 20% to 15%. And more importantly, if you just add up the ones that are in school now, 5 to 13 and 14 to 17, you can do that math real quick, went from 15.5% to 8.9%. The only reason why the total isn't lower is because, see, we've got this bump, according to the census, coming at us in preschoolers. And that's the young people moving into those housing units. And I'm not sure I trust the census 2020 completely, but I think there's probably something there, or the numbers wouldn't show anything. You know what I mean? But it signals a bit of a turn, in that lowest group, which is where eventually all the kids come from. So that's a good thing. On the bad side, you see a lot of red, which means where the growth has been, other than that, in that one group, has all been in the oldest age cohorts. So we've gotten older and older as time's gone on. And the big driver to that is this distribution of householders by age. Because the 25 through 54-year-old group, those three cohorts added together, are responsible for all kiddo production, and the first two primarily for elementary school. But if you look at that share of the households in the district 20 years ago was 40%. 40% were in childbearing, 40% of the households were headed by a person of childbearing age. And now that's fallen to 20%. And I think that's about as low as it can go. And I'm going to kind of hang my hat on that just a little bit. I think we're kind of bottoming out. We've got about as old as we can be. Doesn't mean we're going to grow leaps and bounds overnight, but it's shifted about as far as it can. In between the census, from 2010 to 2020, total population map shows where the growth was. And for those who can't read it, and including me because my eyes aren't as good as they used to be, I want to go back. Of the 5,000 increase in total population of the district between 2010 and 2020, that was a net number, but there was a 4,600 person increase just in the Festival Foothills area. So the entire rest of the district gained a grand total of 400 net. So, and that's why but it's interesting, you can compare that map of the change in total population to this map, which has the change only in the population under 18. So even in areas sometimes where we had growth in total population, the school age population was still in decline. Why is it decline? Well, this is the biggest factor other than charter schools, which fortunately at this point aren't a big problem for you, but is the birth rates. What we've become, as a society in Arizona, what our overall population looks like. Because during the Great Recession from 2006 to 2011, birth rates in the state dropped 18.6%, which was at that time the lowest level on record. And then it's flattened for about 3 or 4 years during the quote-unquote recovery through about 2014. And when the economy really started rolling, most demographers expected birth rate to go back up because in history, that's what's happened. You have a big recession, you have a big economic crisis. People put off that decision just a few years, and they come back to it, and you get a bump on the other side. I don't know if that's where the term baby bump came from, I doubt it, but it does tend to work out that way, except because in that period of time, the standards and mores of young people just shifted. And, having kids was something you do in your 30s, and not something you do in your 20s, or in my case, maybe slightly ahead of that. But it was just a fundamental shift. And so we basically lost almost a decade, if you want to think about it, worth of student production in that decline in growth rate. And because it's continued all the way through 2020, now 2021, it finally ticked upward again. But the number of births at the peak was 102,700 statewide. And here we are 15 years later at 77,000 births statewide. even though our population, total population, has increased by a lot since then. It was interesting. I was sharing this with one of my doctor friends at church, and he was telling me about all the maternity ward beds that have been closed over the last 10 years. And I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. So looking at kind of funny, looking at the same thing from a different direction, if you will. But the fact of the matter is, what this means to the population is the state demographer does not project any increase in the school-age population of Arizona until 2030, even with the growth that we have. And what I do is I lag this, and now it's hard to read. Right down there at the bottom, there's a little row that says kindergarten. So when do those kids that are born that year get to kindergarten? And so now I know it's going to go down at least through 25, 26, guaranteed. And yes, we are having in-migration to the state, and that'll help offset some of that. But the fact of the matter is that generally, just overall, there's just fewer kids. There's just fewer kids to serve. And it's going to be that way for a while. All right, here I go. Starting off in residential development, 3,400 housing units constructed during the decade. 84% of them were in age-restricted or retirement communities. You could see the non-age-restricted market slowly growing. In 2021, reached about 224 units. We did just, finally be able to update that data like in the last few weeks, and it hit just about the same number again this year. Next year it won't. So, but lots of activity, and where that has been, I know it's hard again to see, but the green dots show you where all those permits have been, and they're essentially clustered in the south, in the festival area, and then you can see the Wickenburg Ranch area, but again, this one's a little hard to read. The development potential, what we're looking at, just in the areas of the district that you see shaded in color on this map, which is hardly all of the developable land, but just in what you see shaded, there's a potential for about 25,000 housing units and projects that have some chance in breaking ground in the next 10 years. That does not mean that they'll be complete in 10 years. It's just that those projects are far enough down the line that they could reasonably have development in this time period. And right now, we do have the two projects, Wickenburg Ranch and Perch Ranch, I believe it is, up in the north.
Perks.
I'm sorry.
Perks.
Perks. Thank you very much. See, I am pitch hitting. So, which is still in the zoning process. There's no development plan in there. And I guess it can't really happen until after the highway widening is completed. So that might be down the road a little bit, but that might hold the potential for some all ages housing in the city or in the town. I'm sorry, and that would be a really good thing if that would come to fruition. Everything else is in the south. Skeet Mountain Ranch is the one that's moving forward at the greatest speed at this moment. That is a company that's new or newer to the valley called the New Home Company. Not a very creative idea, but their website says they have houses coming in 2024. So we'll see if they make it. If they do, they'll be the only one probably starting in 24, because it looks like the other projects down there, North Star Ranch, et cetera, are probably 2025 starts now. The way the market's going, but there's obviously no end to potential and no end to interest. The North Star Ranch property still doesn't have any builders. I mean, they've got a master developer. They're putting in bridges and infrastructure and things like that, but no one signed up to build anything yet. And with that size of property, you probably need 3 or 4 builders at the same time to actually make it work. At which point you'd probably be building at least 400 to 500 housing units a year in order to keep that many builders active. And there's just no market for that right now. So I just don't think, I think that's probably another year off. I apologize. So what do we do with all that information? first of all is basically population and housing projections. So we're bringing in the number of new housing units we expected to be added each year, both, retirement and standard housing units, and translating those into households. How many of them are going to be occupied? And then in formulas that I'm not going to try to show here, we use that age structure that I showed you before of the households and the number of households to determine what we've come to on the next page, which is the school-aged population. So how many persons aged 5 to 17 do live or going to live in the district, regardless of whether they go to your school or any school at all? And so, for instance, we'll just take the 22, 23 line across. We know we have 8,473 households. Those are generating 1,449 school-aged persons. That's all persons age 5 to 17. You have K-12 enrollment of 1,305. However, 333 of those come from outside the district, which means you're serving 972 from inside the district, which is 67.1% of the school-age population. So a lot of districts talk about service rate or capture rate. And so what you're looking at is essentially serving 2/3 of the school-age persons who live in the district. And you'll see that number, has gone down. One of the reasons it's gone down recently is because the growth in the district is in the south where there's no high school. And so, essentially, and I do work for DIZARD and I do see their data, and I know that's where they're going. So it is actually really happening. The other thing that will happen is if you start to grow, the charters will become more interested in you. So in addition to having to project housing units and the age structure of the housing units, we're also trying to anticipate then how many of those kids are you going to serve? And so we're actually trying to make this as realistic as possible by screening it down as much as we can to who we think is really going to end up going to school here. And even if we did that, if we had the kind of housing growth, not in the next 2 years, but in the next 10 years that we're thinking about, then we would have basically a doubling of enrollment from about 1,300 to about 2,600 students. But you see the first 2 or 3 years of that is still flat. We're not going anywhere for about 2 or 3 years. And then it's either it doesn't start, and I actually provided the district in the report a conservative scenario, if these developments don't get underway, what happens, kind of a thing. But if they do, we get back to this thing where you need 400 or 500 housing units per year, or you don't have any. It's not like it's half. That's the problem. It could be half, but it won't, especially trying to start a big project like North Star. So much infrastructure up front that they got to do. So we translate, obviously, that in, the enrollment into, and it's detailed in the report, enrollment projections by grade. And this is just showing the totals over time grouped K4, 5, 8, 9, 12, just for illustration purposes. The only thing I would really say about it is that in the projections, as I presented them right now, I'm only assuming you're going to capture 1/3 of the high schoolers in the southern part of the district. So you'll see that the blue bar grows a lot more than the orange bar. And that's because I'm assuming that where the growth is happening, you're not serving, the majority of those students. And I know that's something you'd like to do. It's just a practical matter of how far it is to high school. I think we're getting there, and I apologize for taking time here. I do think your enrollment is going to increase significantly, whatever significantly turns out to be over the next 10 years, based on all the projects and all the money and all the infrastructure that's going into the ground right now. As we talked, we're going to go through a little bit of a decline here the next couple of years. It was kind of coming anyway because we had projects that just weren't getting infrastructure in the ground in time to really start the houses. So we kind of were going to have it anyway. But now with the interest rate situation, I think it's going to be extended at least another year before we start to see that pick back up. We've been talking about the aging of the population, particularly here around the existing town. And I made the comment that as I look at the percentages of how many people are in which age categories and how many people are coming up, that I think we've kind of reached the bottom of the, I think we've got about as old in this area as we can be. And it's going to turn over. I should tell everybody, like it or not, it's on your schedule. So when the rate of growth accelerates, obviously it's going to be a big push in the southern part of the district. And as I said, if it's a big push, it'll attract charters to the area. And as this continues, and it's maybe it's not 10 years, maybe it's 20 years, maybe it's 25 years, but the fact of the matter is that at some point in the future, there's going to be a whole lot more people down there than there is up here. And that's something that you're going to have to just, figure out how you're going to manage. And I don't envy you that one. But that's probably the toughest challenge I think you face. Everything else you're pretty well set up for. So I hope I didn't go too long, and I would take any questions.
Anybody have anything? Ron, you
I'm good.
We're good, Rick. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having us.
Great report.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick, thank you very much.
All right, so next on the agenda, we've got our principal reports, and we've got Wickenburg High School, Mr. Mark Gorman. Come on down.
Good evening.
Good evening. Ron, do you have any
Yes, I do.
start
I have a
offs?
couple questions. On your, I know your, this Galileo data is from the second set of tests, if I read the report correctly. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. My question, I guess, is there any, I'm trying to get to it, my computer, I'm running it backwards. A comparison basically of, how they did on this one compared to the baseline that was done, whatever, August, September.
There is. The challenge we face with looking back at the baseline data is it's not necessarily comparing the same standards on the second benchmark as what they were taking or challenged with in that first initial. I guess the first test tests them on sort of where they should be coming in at that particular moment, not on the same point as where they are on benchmark 2 or where they would be at the end of the year. So just to kind of give you some examples, if we look at like our algebra, let's go to geometry data. At the current time, there's about 13.9% of the students who are highly proficient on that test. Back in August, it was around 9.2. So that one looks like there was some growth that occurred during that particular point in time. But if you look back at, let's see if I can go to one that doesn't show that so much. If we look at the ELA 10, that number is 8.5 that's highly proficient, and currently, and back at that pre-test, it was 11.1. So it's actually had a dip in that particular case if you look at it. But it's kind of like a little bit like comparing apples to oranges, in that what they were assessed on there is not the same as they're getting assessed on benchmark 2. So it's a little bit of a challenge to just compare it, because they're tested on and expected to know more now than what they were tested on and expected to know then.
Okay. All right. So I understand then that there was the first one then was testing to see where they should be. So then, like the third one, will it be more able to compare to this one, or is it still?
It still will be another step up, I believe. Devin, you might be able to actually answer that one a little bit more accurate for me. But the third test that we take in January, then will assess them on more standards that they should have acquired over the last few months up to that point. So the Galileo data, if we compare like the end point, like in my mind, the end point, the let's say we had an assessment that was a comprehensive assessment at the end, and we're doing a true pre, those should be similar tests, but they're not similar necessarily.
Okay. So what does this data really tell us then?
So it's telling us what percentage of them are meeting the current standards benchmarks with respect to the timing, this point in time of the year, with respect to the standards and where they should be. And are they making that progress?
Okay. Okay, I was just, I don't know. I've never understood all this stuff. You know, every time I ask about it, you know, they give it's some different explanations, and so I don't know. To me, without having all the background in it, it's just kind of confusing. I liked your lunch with the principal. How many of those have you had?
We've had one so far
Is this the one? Yeah. I thought that's pretty interesting, but I do either learned a new term or there's a typo.
Yeah, it could be.
On number 3, what do you like about Wickenburg High School?
Let me find that.
And I can read it to you. It says, overall, the staff are Nick.
Yes, that was nice. And I did make the change on this one. That was one of the.
Oh, okay. But I didn't know if Nick was.
They might be Nick too, but not.
I don't know if Nick was a new term or if it was supposed to be something else. Okay, so it's
probably
nice. Okay.
Nice. Yes. Nice.
It's tough to keep up with, you know, changes in terminology with
I hear
teenagers
ya.
sometimes. So,
I agree.
yeah, I just thought it was, you know, kind of comical. Yeah, and I sympathize with the one that would like for you to do something about students that don't care about school. Yeah, and but yeah. Okay. No, that's about all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I like the overall report format and everything, and the information it provides, so that's good.
Appreciate it.
Sandy?
Well, as long as we're on this page with the question, when I read the one that said, offer classes that interest all students, did they give you an idea of what those classes might be?
You know, I think what was coming from that is, and we try to do that with a lot of the programming that we bring on board. Like this year when we brought on our ag program, we felt like that was a great fit for where we are, the interests that kids have, something that would engage them, get them excited about school. But not all fit into that category, and that's the challenge we face. Is they all don't fit right there. That's something that excites them, or they all don't fit that an athletic program is something that's exciting them and gets them engaged. And so, you know, I can go back to one of the responses that was in there about maybe a little bit more attention paid to or opportunities when it came to some of the arts, the performing arts, the you know, band and choir and programming that goes on outside of the day with respect to those. So just trying, you know, and I know we do offer them, but I think, you know, just maybe more of that or some different types of opportunities. And that's a challenge when you're a small school to offer everything. But I think through our presentations that we've done in the past, if you do a cross comparison for schools our size to other districts, we have an amazing amount of programming for our kids. And we always want to try to find more that we can really help them to connect with. But it's going to be a challenge to hit every niche, I guess.
Like a survey of the kids and ask them what their interests are so that we could maybe see what other kind of programs they're interested in?
Yeah. I mean, that's something we can definitely do. And I have more planned, again, lunches with principal, and I'll definitely, that can be an additional question that maybe I even propose during some of those and get more.
I just kind of felt like
Personalized.
it left it hanging out there, you know, that it was interest to all students. Well, nothing is going to be of interest to all students because we're all different and we all
Sure.
have different interests. But, you know, if there's 15 kids that are interested in like the ag program, you know, that's one thing. If you have one person who's interested in hip hop of the ages or whatever, you know, well, obviously that's not, they're interested in that, but nobody else is, you know, so I don't think we understand what the majority of their interests are if we don't ask them.
I hear you.
And ask them to be more specific. So that was my comment on that.
Okay.
But I wanted to say congratulations to your academic students. I love seeing kids succeed. So that's always makes me happy.
That
And
they are awesome, and we have some of them here today.
somebody back there smiling must be one of them.
Quite a few of them actually in here right now are included in that group. So
I already earlier congratulated Rachel. I wanted to also comment on this 30-minute grade improvement, 1 day a week. Are you finding out that's enough, or does it need to be more?
well, we're sort of piloting it, if you will, right now.
Mhm.
That's something to be determined. We're going to see how effective it is. Our initial findings were that there was a decrease. I'm going to be upfront and say that we didn't do it last week because we weren't here Thursday.
Right.
We ran numbers this week, and that number's gone back up some. So it's we're kind of seeing this. So it's going to take a little bit more time for us to really get an idea if it's effective, if it's working. I do feel like it's a motivating factor, and I've seen that. I've mentioned to some that in about 3.5 years, I've had just about that many kids come to me with concerns about maybe grades getting posted or updated, and I've had probably a half dozen in the last couple of weeks.
Right.
So I think kids are more conscientious of where their grades are and what they need to do to bring those grades up, and so they're maybe more concerned about it too. So I think there could be a little bit of a motivational factor that plays into it as well.
I also like the idea of the cleanup, and I'm thinking maybe if kids are out cleaning things up, maybe there's more pride in their campus, and they'll think about throwing things in the trash can instead of on the ground, and so I think that's great, because I think when you have to go out and clean it up and you see how nice it looks, and you can take some pride in it, I think that's good.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to acknowledge about the 30 or so that were out there on that day. You're speaking of Love Your Schools Day, I believe, anyway. And 30 or so that were out there, and they did they took on different projects, painting curb and picking up trash and trimming brush and doing a lot of different things. And so we had the kids out there. We had adults from the community some have kids, some don't have kids any longer in the school that were participating. So it was awesome for our first time to have that number out there and participating in it, and we appreciate all that.
I thought it was great. I don't want to say any more because Randy might have something he wants to say. I don't want to take it all.
Mark, as usual, great report. It just amazes me that any activity or group, anything that goes on in that school, you have given me information about everything. Anything that's extracurricular, the activities that the school puts on, everything, and I don't have to have any questions about anything. I like seeing the things about the JAG, No Place for Hate. I like this with your lunch with the principal now. Just amazing report. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, and I've always said this. I put it together, but I have so many people that are behind the scenes working on helping with that. So there's a lot of people to give credit to.
It is one other thing I did mention is, from reading through it, I know you didn't write it all because they're going my English class or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It would be really nice if they would say who they are that is writing it. I can remember a few years back, people did say, it would say Mrs. Smith's class.
Mm-hmm.
So you knew who was writing the article, and I think it would be nice if they would say who they are.
Okay. I probably could do that without them even saying it, because I pretty much know who submits the information to.
Right. Anyway, that was another thing. It would be nice to know who's writing them.
Okay.
Now, she wouldn't have thrown that in there That was one thing I was going to request.
Oh.
But anyway, I'd like to go to the lunch with the principal. I like that the kids engaged with you and gave you some things. I'd really like to see some follow-up on some of those. I mean, some of them aren't practical for size of our school. And like what Ron said, that Nick, if we can learn all the acronyms and all the terminology,
Work on
I
that.
think that'll be great.
Might throw a few more in there for you when it's all done. You never know.
We'll catch them. I was really, really happy to see that the W come back alive. I'm glad that they did that hill with that love your
Schools.
campus. Sports medicine, have they been on the football sidelines this year?
They participated during football.
Okay, guys. I know they did. I used to. I didn't know if they were still doing that. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Mark, I'm not going to keep you any longer. I really appreciate your report. These guys covered just about everything that I would have thought to ask. Great report. Love it.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate all the feedback, and we'll work on again next round, doing some changes that help resolve some of those questions and things that you had suggestions for.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
One comment I have, you have a lot of stuff going on in that campus.
And I'll be honest, there's a lot more than probably what's in here. Just we could probably go on with JAG, right? JAG? I could probably fill that entire report with just JAG.
JAG,
Doing some
yeah.
amazing stuff.
Well, good.
You practically did.
Thank you.
So are you not doing this one, or are we having Mrs. Peterson do this one?
Actually,
Yay.
Yay, Colleen.
we'll be doing the report, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Oh, perfect. All right, so we've got the Wickenburg Virtual Academy, and we've got our director here, Mrs. Colleen Peterson. And I think, Randy, if you want to start, if you have anything.
I like seeing the numbers that we got for participation in the virtual academy. It's great. I like involvement with the West Mech and things like that. The thing I really like is the students that are going over to the elementary school and again some learning some things there, but helping out with the elementary school.
Yeah, it makes them better students, actually. They come back and appreciate what teachers do and what it takes to work with students that are struggling. So it makes everybody better.
So, but other than that, good report, Colleen.
You took my fire. But my other thing that I was going to say is I was happy to see, and I know this sounds terrible, but I was happy to see that the kids that are in virtual, that are in 4th grade, 5th grade, are practically, they're down to 1.
Yes.
I think those younger kids really need to be in a classroom. And I noticed that there's no younger than 4th
Correct.
grade.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me happy because I think the younger kids need to be in a classroom with a teacher. And I don't think they're prepared to do virtual. But
Yeah.
Other than that, I thought it was great with the West Mech and going down and helping the kids. And so your 2 new staff members.
Mm-hmm. Kaylee and Viviana.
Yes.
Yes.
They're teachers.
So
or they're
Kaylee
what?
is our program assistant / lab coach. So Kaylee's in the lab every day with the students that come in, whether they need help in the lab. She's also our go-to when parents and students who are working from home have questions like, how can my Galileo password's not working. So she's our front line. When they call, she kind of troubleshoots with what's happening at home with the students and or parents. We use GoGuardian. And so she's got all of their screens up so she can tell them, okay, log in. I'm going to monitor you from GoGuardian. And so she's engaging with them. And so that's her primary role, is frontline with the students and the parents. Mm-hmm. And she's in our lab Monday through Thursday from 8 to 4. And then Viviana is the employee that is split between CTE and WVA. So she's our secretary that does for Clint and Brady the CTE, all the reporting, budget, things like that. And then she's the WVA secretary and registrar. So she's doing our registration She's doing our numbers, any reporting that we need to do. So she and I work very closely with the administrative work that has to be done. And she's a WHS alumni, and so it's happy to have her back on campus. And she actually has a degree, but she also has aspirations of maybe looking and going back to going into teaching. So she's getting a little sampling of what the education world is like.
Okay. Yeah, I actually recognize the name.
Yeah,
from
yeah.
The days. And I went to see this play, so it's great that, you know, we can have the virtual academy and that they are able to participate in drama or sports or any of those things. So I
Right,
think
yeah.
it's great because I think you need to be engaged with something other than a computer.
Absolutely, definitely.
I'll shut up.
Okay, well, that was my comment, so.
Because everybody's stealing
I
everybody.
was glad to see all the report on all the students that are in extracurricular activities.
Yeah, it's a big deal. We know that when students are engaged outside of the classroom, they experience more success. So.
Very good. I'm done.
Oh, you're done? I like it. I like that kids are involved in extracurricular. Let's see what else they say. No, one thing that was different on this one is we actually have some discipline data on here. I like that.
Yes.
Because with this many kids, virtual or not, there's got to be something. So I'm glad to see that you touched on that.
And I would like to comment, that kind of goes back to Kaylee and Viviana. We are constantly calling, emailing, mail letters of, hey, your student hasn't been on. Are there any issues? And so they probably are inundated with our communication with them to the point that they're probably like, oh, that's the school. We're not answering that call. So having those two and being more hands-on and getting students back on track has been very beneficial and helping us see more success rather than waiting till the end and then trying to problem solve. We're trying to be preventative.
Right.
Great.
And you're keeping Officer Leahy busy too.
Yes, we are. He came in today and told me I was going to the clinker if I kept sending kids his way. So.
But otherwise, Colleen, very good report. Thank you for doing that, and look forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we've got principal report for Vulture Peak Middle School and Mrs. Anne Marie Davy. Come on down.
Just let Sandy go and then nobody else has to talk.
No, I'm not talking this time.
Oh, I was really looking
You
forward
can't
to
do that to
Good
her.
evening, everybody.
We'll have to talk on this one. Randy, do you want to start it? These two are fighting.
Try to start with him because he started, I started, so it's his turn.
No, I gave him a shot before.
Oh.
He started the other one.
Oh.
Okay. Good report again, Anne Marie.
Thank you.
I think we've always recognized that discipline in the junior high is
Yes, sir.
one of our biggest difficulties here,
It is.
and it shows on the reports. But glad we're recognizing it and going through that. I have really no additional stuff. I like the way you've presented the stuff with the Galileo data. Shows us, we got a lot of work.
We have a lot of work to do. Yes,
A lot of work. But other than that, yes, it's got the information I'm looking for out there, what I need to know, what's going on out in the school and that. So thank you. Good report.
Thank you.
I really like the way you did the discipline report and showing. I found it interesting what time of day, what days, who, and I think the thing that probably hurt my heart the most is how many sixth graders.
Yes.
These kids are too young to be causing all this trouble already, and I hope we, you know, I talked with Superintendent Ramadini, and you know, I know we're putting things in place, which makes
Yes, we
me
are.
feel good because we have to capture these kids and get them on the right path before it escalates and goes too far. But I really liked that. It really was great. Again, grades, you know, it's my number one priority. And as we said, we have a lot of work to do, and
We do.
we'll do it. We're
We
gonna
will.
do it. Oh, I'm gonna throw something really good. I love the fact that you brought the assemblies back.
Oh, they were, the kids were so awesome. It was
Yes.
great.
I think maybe that's what we needed at that school, is a little bit more pride, a little bit more get together as a school, have some assemblies, celebrate things. So I was really happy to see that, and that it went over so well.
It did.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought that really made me happy, and I'm not going to say anything else because
That's what you said last time. Ron?
Okay. I comment on the discipline stuff. The PBIS report, the way it breaks down stuff makes, I thought it was kind of interesting, the day of the week that was the most, and the day and stuff, you know, so it's kind of like, maybe,
Yeah, you thought it would be Monday, right?
yeah,
And,
actually,
that would be our hypothesis, but it's not.
yeah, it's not.
They're still sleeping, I guess.
Maybe, you know, it could be, or either that or just, you know, they not bored yet after the weekend, something like that. But yeah, that, and then the day of the week, time of the day too. That was kind of interesting, just how that broke out. Your Galileo data, you know, like I said, yeah, this is from August, so this is where they should have been, if I understand what I was told.
Well, we have two, benchmark 1 and benchmark 2. We just.
Oh, you
just
did have 2
finishing
in
up-
there?
Yes, we're just finishing up benchmark 2.
Okay.
So that's not quite completed yet.
Okay, all right. Maybe I didn't expand this enough to read the small print.
It is small.
Okay, yeah, okay, you do have both of them in there, all right. And so what's your general assessment at this point of how they're doing? And
Well, as you see, we are struggling. Two of the things we are putting in place are, we didn't have any gap classes to start the year out, and so we've brought that back for English gap. And right now we don't have a math gap, but we're looking at some ways to get some more interventions for math. So those are the things. I mean, we recognize that. We did increase the time of the classes so we could try and get some more interventions within the classroom time, and rolling out some things during Eagle Hour. And we're also talking about possibly expanding the class time and seeing if Eagle Hours is something we need, or if we want to give more classroom time, because obviously the instructional time, they need that as well.
yeah, okay. All right, that's all I have. It's over to you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you so much. So, last Friday, did you see a car pass through your campus as you walked back from the gym? That was me.
Oh, is that you?
Yeah. I like to sneak on and sneak off because I like to check out our properties. But what I really like is over by the Wellick Learning Center, I like the RISE banner. That is really nice, and I love that program. I love what it stands for, and I really hope it keeps traction, gets traction, and keeps traction, because that's so important for these kids. And I do need to ask you about the assembly. So do you have it set up where the 6th graders are sitting on the floor and
No.
the 7th and 8th grade are in the bleachers?
No, they're all three in the bleachers.
The reason I asked that strange question is because when my daughter went there in 6th grade, they were always on the floor. And I used to go to the assemblies, you know, watch. And she said, you know what, next year I get to sit in bleachers. So now they don't have anything to strive for. They're all in the bleachers already.
So should I tell them to have to sit on the floor next time?
Yeah,
President
just tell them it was
Malio
my
said
idea.
you have to sit on
Say,
the
hey.
floor.
It was his idea, and he
Okay.
just wants to try it.
I'll-
But anyway, no, but seriously, great report, great information. Your slicer report on that discipline was amazing. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right, so now we move into, let me get set up here for this. Too many things on here. All right, so we are moving into our public hearing. So I'm going to open this up to a public hearing for consideration of the 301 performance plan for teachers, and it's presented by none other than our HR coordinator, Mrs. Valerie Shumway.
Oh, I can see that. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to see it. Good evening, President Malio, school board members, and Dr. Remendini. I look forward to being with you tonight. We have our new 301 plan tonight, and I hope you noticed that there were a lot of changes in it this year from last year. To recap a little bit, let's see, Jeremy, this is my button, right? Okay, good, you got it. To recap just a little bit in case you don't remember, the 301 plan comes from an initiative from our taxpayers from the year 2000. And some of the goals in it were to increase teachers' salaries, to increase accountability among the public educational institutions, and to reward highly performing teachers. So that has been in effect many years, and we've had, I don't know how many times the plan has changed, but from my knowledge, it's been the same for many years. So we worked hard to do that. There are eligibilities. I'm going to skip through this a little bit. We're familiar with the eligibility for the teachers. There are criteria for them. There is an appeals process if they don't like what the performance plan pushes on them through the criteria. One thing I love is the goals. You remember maybe last year in our discussion of this plan, sorry, I'm going to have to take this off. It keeps bumping. We were looking for a plan that better measured the performance of the teachers. Aaron has for many years been encouraging this. Sandy mentioned it last year that he wanted to see more accountability. And Dr. Remendini has held us accountable to create a plan that was equitable, measurable, and applied to the current staff. So as we move forward with that, we came up with these goals. Let me just get there because I'm not sure I can read. So it's basically to do what I said, to create a plan that was measurable, that it applied to the current staff, and that it would be measurable to the teacher's individual performance instead of something that was happening in the district, that it applied to them, that it created more accountability. And one of our goals was to create a one payment plan by the end of 23-24 fiscal year. So we met most of those. There were many good discussions. The committee started meeting about in the spring of last year and tried to create some better criteria that applied to this year. And as you can imagine, they represent lots of different feelings and people, and we had lots of good discussions. And I think they did a really good job trying to create new criteria and then try to present that criteria to the other 80 or 70 teachers that it applied to. The breakdown is in your in the presentation also. We did not meet the criteria of a one payout plan. That was something that was hard for them to move to for this next year, and we understood. But they did create a plan that is different in the way that before it was the best 2 out of 3 you could meet the criteria. And this criteria, if you notice, has percentages attached to each of the different criteria goals. And so a person would not maybe necessarily get all the money if they did not meet the criteria. So that was something that was very different, but it wasn't a problem for the staff to regroup to that. I don't know if you saw any that you liked. I think we are moving forward better. Let me see if there's anything else on these that I wanted to share with you. So our total payout for this year is $36.50. It's going to be a separate check. The teachers did vote on the plan. The first plan with one payout did not pass the teacher vote. So they went back to a 2 payout plan. And Dr. Remendini was very generous in the criteria she allowed them to have so that she could have that. I say her, she worked with the committee and did a great job helping them move through that. So the second plan was presented and approved. The instructional coaches, the TOSAs, the counselors all did a new plan, which you have. So they all created it. We did have a couple new plans with the WVA director and the CT coordinator. And then the plan is consistent with all the state department requirements, the state of Arizona Department of Education's requirements. So I don't know if you have any questions on that plan or what they're presenting, but we hope that you will like it.
Anybody have any comments?
I don't have a question.
Do you have a comment, Miss Sandy?
Well, I think I like this one better than 2 out of 3 because I like the plan much better. I think it's a big improvement. So that's my only comment.
We do too, and I think the teachers and I know the committee was they wanted something that was a performance plan for them, and I think they did a good job coming up with criteria that will do that. We know that there's still room for growth, and they're going to look at some different things like attendance and things like that. But I think we're moving forward in a good place.
Ron, you good with all that?
I'm good.
All right, perfect.
Okay, awesome. Thank you
job.
so much.
Thank you so
Me
much.
too.
Thank you.
Oh, I forgot to say, you saw the executive summary of changes so that you could help move through all those changes. Does that look good? Did it seem complete enough for you?
To me, it did.
All good?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody in the public want to have anything clarified on what Mrs. Shumway just went over, or anybody? It's a public hearing.
Curiosity, I read it this morning. It says all K through 11 kids, not 12. Just maybe educate why it says.
Mrs. Cushman,
Yeah,
can
sorry.
you please come up to the
So in
microphone?
the report, and I just saw briefly up there, it says students K through 11 in several spots. Why not K-12? Just in enlightening reasons.
You were probably looking at the academic measure.
Correct.
So the academic measure is different reporting for different grades. Some, as you probably are aware, the measurement for academics is different for an elementary student to a high school student. So those different measurements are just so that they have criteria that is measurable for that age group.
So how is the 12th graders measured?
Our 12th graders do not take our benchmark assessments.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? I will then close our public hearing at 6:41 p.m. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, next up, we've got our action item on the public hearing we just had. So first item is request approval of the 2022-23 301 performance plan for teachers presented by Mrs. Shumway. Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion that the governing board of Wickenburg Unified School District Number 9, having held a public hearing on November 15th, 2022, hereby adopt the 2022-2023 301 performance plan and authorize the 301 performance plan payout as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. All right, second half of that, the action item is approval of the 2022-23 Wickenburg Unified School District Pay for Performance Compensation Plan for eligible non-teacher certified staff presented by Mrs. Shumway.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the 2022-2023 Wickenburg Unified School District Pay for Performance Compensation Plan for eligible non-teacher certified staff with the payout as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, and that takes us into our call to the public. Okay, when you come up to the podium, I'll call your name first. Come up to the podium, and you're going to be speaking into the microphone that's up there because this meeting is live streamed. It's not so we can hear you better, it's so that the people that are not here can hear if they're watching on, or I mean listening on YouTube, okay? So you have 3 minutes to speak, and our secretary is going to let me know when the time's up, and then you're going to be dragged off the stage. So first up, we've got Daisy, is it Trottier? Okay.
Yeah, as a concerned citizen, I'm concerned about the safety issues. Are our children protected from shootings, stuff like that?
Okay. Well, here's something that I should have said first. We can't have dialogue with you because these are not agenda items. These are just things that you want to hear more about at some period of time. If it's a certain campus you're looking for, I would recommend you contact that principal, and it can give you the plan.
Okay.
There are plans in place, by the way. Okay. I'll just tell you that.
So if I went to each individual school, I would be able to find those things out.
I would contact the district office and make that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just clarify that each of our schools do have a comprehensive safety plan, but most of the items in the safety plan are not for the public because that would put our students in danger if the public knew what our safety plan was.
Okay.
So we do have comprehensive safety plans at all 4 campuses, and they are approved by, in Wickenburg, the Wickenburg Police Department, the Wickenburg Fire Department, and the Health Department, and at Festival, that's the city of Buckeye that does those. So they are in place. They're constantly being updated and upgraded and looked at, but they are not for public dispense.
I think that sounds great, really. Okay. My next concern is with kids today, I don't know how true this is. I hear that they're not being taught our forefathers, our history, the pledge. Well, they all know the Pledge of Allegiance, I'm sure, but like the Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights, who our forefathers were. I mean, that's important. Are they being taught this stuff in school? The Constitution.
You would, I would contact I'd contact the high school principal.
High school.
Yeah.
Not elementary. Not.
Well, you can do middle school. You're welcome to call all of them, but we just can't talk with you right now. Okay, as a board.
Okay.
You just listen to your concerns, and we can have them get the information prepared. You can call them, visit them. Okay,
Okay. Yes, because I would like to know that.
perfect.
Because they are tomorrow. And without them,
Exactly.
you know.
Yep. Thank you so much. Next up, we've got Mrs. Cushman.
Good evening, Governor Board members. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your service. I know firsthand that it's often thankless service that you provide for us. My name is Susan Cushman. I did want to just clarify that I am here tonight not representing any organizations I'm affiliated with or the opinions of any others. My main concern, and it's just mostly because that's what I'm most involved with at the high school, is the athletic department. And let me say my issue is not with the personnel of the athletic department. It's with the staffing and budgeting of the athletic department at the district level altogether. I started looking into, after you hear a lot of concern, issues going on, and you're going to hear some more, I think, in a little bit. Coincidental that we're here at the same meeting tonight. And I'm sure it goes with a lot of the other programs at the high school, but I'm just not involved with them or middle school to comment on them. What I would like to see have done, and it kind of started a little while back, a few years ago, there was a great report with the Athletic Booster Club and Dr. Carlson. We started exploring all the funding that the boosters in Cowie was providing the school district. A lot of opinions would say, besides the very bare basic needs of any athletics, those are the ones actually funding the programs. That still holds a little true today, in my opinion. A lot will just want to be flippant with how things are ran or not ran. But I think it goes back to, and I truly, truly believe this, it has nothing to do with the personnel in the athletic department district-wide. I have not met a single one of them that just doesn't work tirelessly, that doesn't have the care and compassion and just the absolute desire for successful programs. The problem is it's not staffed or budgeted properly. And I've yet to meet a single person that can educate me to the contrary. I've looked at budgets of similar sized districts with similar students, and we're funding well below their percentages of our M&O budget towards the athletic department. Instead of pounding fists and demanding amounts or whatever, what really needs to happen, and I'm not just saying with athletics, again, that's just my niche, it's what I'm involved in, it's what I enjoy. There needs to be a study. You know, we have a failing athletic program. I'm not sure that, you know, as a whole in the district, I believe that we struggle for athletes. We have facilities issues. We have equipment issues. It would be great if we could do a study and say our comparable districts, etc., this is their funding for it. This is their FTE for personnel for it. You know, this is going to sound contrary. Love you to death. You know that. He's set up for failure. The current structure is he will never succeed as an athletic director. It is a reason this district has blown through athletic directors in the past. He's got too many duties. He's not an athletic director. Anybody, I mean, I know that's his first title, but let's be real. He's not. You guys need to reevaluate his job description and look at all those things, and you need to see that you guys are overworking him, and that is why the athletic department is failing.
Thank you, Mrs. Fishman. Next up, we have Coy Bowser.
Good evening, Mr. Maglio, Dr. Remendini, and board members. I apologize for a late entrance. My name is Corey Bowser. I'm a high school senior. I am the captain of the wrestling team, and I've wrestled with Coach Grody since I was 11. Since 2006, when Coach Grody started coaching at Wickenburg High School, the team has been moved from one facility to another due to size, safety, or unsanitary conditions, even displacing another team. The goal has always been and will be to find a facility that is safe, sanitary, and gives equal opportunity for our student athletes. There are currently 28 wrestlers, 8 of which are girls. They're wrestling in a 30 by 30 room, which doesn't allow them equal opportunity to wrestle a live match or equal practice time due to the constricted space of the room in a safe manner. Coach Grody has pleaded with the district 4 years ago for a larger, safer practice facility in which he thought he had planned and worked out with Dr. Carlson, but apparently it was shut down. Coach Grody has twice offered to renovate the media center at his own expense, which would include putting a divider wall between the computer lab area and the rest of the media center, moving electrical power sources, and moving hanging lights into the grid of the ceiling. Both times the powers to be have found new uses for the room. The issue has always been important, but even more now with the larger number of student athletes and now female wrestlers. Coach Grody has been a loyal coach for 16 years at Wickenburg High School, producing 59 state qualifiers, 25 state placers, and 8 runner-up champions. But most importantly, he is making an impact on these student athletes' lives. Something to note is Coach Grody has a full wrestling team of a varsity wrestling team of 14, a JV of 6, and 8 varsity girls. Yet he is told 1 coaching stipend and splits it with his assistant coach. He has 2 volunteer coaches as well. From the outside looking in, this is just another inequality. We realize that nothing can happen overnight, and this is why Aaron Grody started pursuing this so many years ago. But at the moment, the bottom line is, the room is unsafe. It is unsanitary, with a brown liquid on the underside of the mats, and neither the boys nor the girls team has the equal time, space, or opportunity to wrestle with their teams. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Clay. In case you have no other sheets. Okay. Thank you. All right, we have our consent agenda. Before we take action, any board member need anything pulled from that consent agenda? Hearing none, we can entertain a motion.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the, wait a minute, let me get the right one here.
Didn't have what?
Okay, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda for Wickenburg Unified School District meeting on November 15th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Moves us into our action items. 7A, request for approval of the financial reports presented by Executive Director of Business, Mrs. Erin Johnson.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Ramandini. Thank you for having me this evening. As you can see by the report in front of you, we are trending well on both our maintenance and operation budget as well as our capital. We are spending more out of M&O this year, which is to be expected with the salary increases we gave, and then just also the cost of goods and services that we've discussed many times before, especially just fuel is just one example with the number of miles that our transportation department goes each day to get our kids back and forth to school. As far as our capital budget, not a lot has changed there from previous month. We actually had a little discussion about capital plan and cabinet today, so you will begin starting to see more expenditures out of there to out of that fund just for some improvements and to our facilities that are much needed, including some new HVAC units. So our budget balances are positive. We are in compliance, and there are no surprises to the best of my interest.
Very good. Thank you, Erin. Anybody have any questions or comments for Erin?
I just noticed that I think it's the first time I've ever seen it that our expenditure, the percentage on the little windshield wiper thing,
Yep.
that our expenditure is above what the projected is.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the last couple of years we've just not quite made that just with all the halt
Yeah.
and M&O. So yeah, we're starting to spend more of the M&O again now that we're out of COVID and not spending as many dollars out of those funds as well. So.
Okay.
Okay. Entertain a motion for that.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the financial report as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries as well. Thank you. And item 7B, first reading of the following policy advisories. We have referrals to other agencies, basic instructional program, school counselors and psychologists, hazing, interscholastic sports, and school ceremonies and observances. Anybody have any discussion on any of those from reading the packet? Pretty straightforward. All right. So we move along to item 8A, items for future agendas. Any board member have anything for future agendas? Oh,
Not at this time.
guess we tired you guys out tonight. All right, then we've got our announcements on our calendar. And Casey, I'd like to thank you so much for providing all this information. Christmas Day break, well, we give them 2 weeks off? What?
They've earned it.
All right, so we will go to item 9, which is closing of the meeting. Favorite of each and everybody that's here.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Didn't think there would have been anybody.